We will
today. I'm so sorry that I can't be in Mexico. I've been to every Cabana partner country now except for Mexico. And I'm really, really hoping that one day soon I'll be able to make it to your beautiful country. Okay, so why am I not in the presentation? There we go. Right. Okay. So hopefully the reason why I named my talk The Accidental Bioinformatician will become apparent as we go through the talk. Catalina has already given me a really lovely introduction, but just to give you a little bit about my background, I actually started out as a medical student back in the late 1980s. I was very, very lucky. I was the first person in my family to go to university. And I managed to get a place at the University of Oxford to read preclinical medicine. And while I was there, essentially discovered that I really didn't want to be a practicing doctor and became fascinated by molecules. So I then took off to the other place, to Cambridge, to do a PhD in signaling, in phosphoinositide kinases, which had already become a passion of mine. I'd been working in labs in Cambridge every summer up until that point, and it was a bit of a dream to come to Cambridge and work with one of my gurus. And then, for reasons that will become apparent later, I ended up working in the science publishing industry for 10 years. I started out at Elsevier Trends and worked on a number of different journals in the 8 years that I was there. And then I moved just prior to the launch of the Nature Reviews journals, had a lot of involvement in the launch of the Nature Reviews series, and ultimately became the launch editor of Nature Reviews Cancer. By that point, I'd been in publishing for about 10 years. It had been a tremendous education in just about every aspect of the molecular life sciences that you can imagine. And I'd met some amazing people, but I was getting a little bit tired of the production process of journals, to be honest. You're on like a hamster's wheel going round and round and round, and always 3 months ahead, but also dealing with the next month and the month after that. And it just, I was beginning to feel as though I was living my life away in issues of these journals. And so I then shook things up and decided to move to the EBI. I knew very, very little about bioinformatics at the time, and many would argue that, and I would probably agree with them, that I still know very, very little about bioinformatics nearly 20 years later. But the opportunity arose. I took advantage of it, and I'm still there. I joined the EBI to set up their first ever outreach program, and using my skills developed in the publishing industry. And then in 2006, 2007, I was asked whether I would take on training as well. And I was actually very, very reluctant to do so at the time. I was worried that I was taking on too much. I was worried that I didn't have the skills. But my boss at the time used his charms and his persuasive powers and a few threats as well. And so I became the head of training at the EBI, and I've been in that role for over 10 years now. And I am so glad that he persuaded me to do this. It's been an amazing journey. And I have to say that I think the most exciting part of that journey has been my involvement in the Cabana project. It's been amazing, inspirational, humbling, and I feel very, very lucky to be part of it. And also, I really do think that I have a lot to thank Cabana for, in terms of my continuing and growing involvement in Iscb activities. I had been involved in Iscb from way back 2004, but my involvement with Cabana and my passion for working with young scientists and with low and middle income countries has enabled me to participate in Iscb business in a way that wasn't possible before. And then, as Catalina mentioned, I also dabble in a lot of other European projects, and I really can't take any of the kudos or the responsibility for the excellent work that goes on in the other projects that Catalina mentioned. It's my team members who are taking the lead on those and doing an absolutely amazing job. And then, helping me to feed things into Cabana and into the EBI training program that they've developed in those projects. So in short, I see myself as a generalist, having spent all this time in the science publishing industry. See myself as a non-conformist. What you see here is really not a typical science career, and definitely not a typical bioinformatics career. I am a self-confessed introvert, but I think I'm quite an extroverted introvert. For sure, I know now that I'm a Latinophile, and the more time I could spend in Latin America, the more time I would, believe me. I'm also an open science enthusiast, and I have developed a passion for capacity building. So that's a little bit about me. I would like to tell you about some of the work that we do at the EBI, and then I will focus in on Cabana and some of the stuff that's more immediately relevant to you in Latin America. And then I will spend a little bit of time at the end, if we've got time, reflecting on really, I guess, how I've used opportunism to its best advantage, in the hope that that might help some of you in terms of career development. Okay, so where I work at the EMBL European Bioinformatics Institute, we have a global mandate to store, collect, and make available open biological data for the global community. And we are one of only a small number of organisations in the world that have this responsibility. We have a five-fold mission at the EBI. The thing that we're most famous for is delivery of our scientific services. So you've probably come across UniProt, you've probably come across the European Nucleotide Archive and Ensemble. These are public data resources for the research community that have a large part of their activities based at the EBI, if not all. In the case of Ensemble, it's all. So that's the thing that we're most famous for, I think. We also have a very active research division, and also many of the people who are involved in delivering the services also have a research group and have PhD students and postdocs and a curiosity-driven research strand to the work that they do. The thing we're probably, after research and service, the thing we're probably next famous for is training, actually. And as part of EMBL, this European treaty organisation, training is a vital part and has been there from the very, very beginning of EMBL. And the part that we play at EBI is an important piece of that jigsaw puzzle. And then the other two areas that EBI focuses on are engaging with European industry. We have a very active industry strategy. We have some beautiful collaborations with industry. One of them, the Open Targets project, does open science in drug discovery and makes target identification and validation a pre-competitive activity that anybody could take part in. And then we also coordinate bioinformatics efforts across Europe, and we have there's a network of service centres of excellence in Europe called the Elixir nodes, which all work together with the Elixir hub at EBI to make the whole much greater than the sum of its parts, and to federate the responsibility for bioinformatics services across Europe. I'm going to focus right in on training now, because that's what I know best. And our mission in the EBI training programme is to enable EMBL as a whole to deliver world-leading training in bioinformatics and in scientific service provision. We deliver that to the entire research community, and we focus on empowering scientists at all career stages to make the most of biological data and to strengthen bioinformatics capacity across the globe. And you'll see as I go through that we are agnostic of career stage, and we're agnostic of the sector or the country that our trainees come from. We're inclusive and we welcome everybody. And this leads me on to the values that we try to adopt throughout the entire training programme. We aim for our courses to be immersive, collegial, led by experts. So it's not my team that delivers the majority of the training, it's the experts in the EBI service teams and research groups who really are working close to the data, who deliver the vast majority of our training. We aim to be cutting edge, and we can be cutting edge because of that close interaction that we have with the EBI science. We also aim to be unbiased. So if there's an excellent EBI service that does something, but there's also an excellent service that's developed by another centre somewhere else in the world, we try and ensure that we deal with that in a fair way in our training courses. And many of our course faculty actually come not from the EBI, but from other institutes around the world. We try our best to be responsive to our trainees' needs, and some of that responsiveness comes from seeking feedback at the end of our courses and then sometime after our courses. But some of that responsiveness is also during a course. So we try and take the temperature of the room. We try to be very aware of whether or not people are either struggling or racing ahead. And we try and modify our pace. We try and modify our examples. We try and modify the way we're teaching on the fly, to give our trainees the best experience that we can. And that's quite a challenging thing to do, and it's something that we've tried to build into our Train the Trainer programs, so that we can exchange knowledge with other people delivering training, because it really makes a difference. And we also focus on a really high proportion of practical content. So when you come to an EBI course, it's not just about learning bioinformatics theory. You get in there and you do your own data analyses, and you're using the EBI data resources and other resources and tools, and probably spending at least 50% of your time doing practical things and discussing the outcomes of those practical things. And so over the years, we've managed to develop a very scalable program. And this just shows you really the last 5 or 6 years. So back in 2019, when we were all allowed to travel around the world, we participated in over 300 training, outreach and knowledge exchange events, supporting biomedical and life science professionals throughout the world. We have a freely accessible online training resource, which is rather unimaginatively called Train Online. And that alone was accessed by almost 600,000 unique IP addresses last year. We have continued to expand our online training offerings. So we add new courses, we deliver webinars, and then we put the pre-recordings of those webinars up on Train Online. So we're constantly adding new dynamic content that's freely available globally. And we've also focused on delivering Train the Trainer events. And through the EBI program, We delivered 3 Train the Trainer events last year. So that trained up 26 new bioinformatics instructors just within the EBI. But then we also work with other communities to do train the trainer activities, and we've actually done a lot of this in the context of the Cabana project. And there is the second day of an Iscb train the trainer tutorial going on in parallel with this, in Spanish actually, because it's our Latin American partners from Spanish-speaking countries delivering that content today. So we've been able to achieve continuous growth and really considerable scale over the years that we've been running a training program. And that has been possible because we've done it with the help of our friends. And this, I call these my stripy socks diagrams, because this is a breakdown of participation in our training activities from all of the other parts of the EBI. So all of we're organized into service clusters at the EBI, and each of the service clusters here is in a different color. And you can see that both in terms of face-to-face training and in terms of e-learning, we really have involvement of the entire European Bioinformatics Institute here. So in the years 2014 to 2017, we had almost 326 people actively involved in developing or delivering EBI training. And we've trained a large number of staff members through our Train the Trainer program. So we are growing our own trainers and encouraging anybody at the EBI who wants to get involved in training to participate, and then supporting them to do that. And that's what's helped us to achieve this growth. It's not all down to growth of the team, although the team has grown as well. So how do we achieve this? We do this through a number of different modalities. This is what the situation was like at the beginning of March, before COVID, before lockdown. We were running a very active training program at the EBI, typically 25 or more courses a year, something on almost every week of the year. We were traveling around the world, delivering courses at host sites. We were welcoming visitors to the EBI, some for maybe a few days or a week, some for 6 months or more. We had our Train Online platform, and we had the Train the Trainer activities. So these 5 modalities. And then, of course, COVID struck, and we had to have an immediate rethink. And so now I'm very happy to report that we've been able to adapt, and we have a live virtual program that has essentially replaced our on-site training program. As soon as we can, we hope to get back to doing face-to-face training, both on and off-site. But for now, we're living in this virtual world. And once this horrific pandemic has got to the point where it's manageable and we're able to travel more freely again, I do not see the virtual side of things going away. And that's not just at EBI. I see this as a global trend. We've all learned so much about communicating in a virtual environment. We're able to do more environmentally friendly science because of it. And we're able to do more inclusive science because of it. Because, if you're traveling from Latin America to the EBI, or from Australasia, or from Africa, it costs an absolute fortune, and not everybody has these funds. So being able to offer training at a more accessible cost to people all over the world is a really wonderful thing, and something we want to continue to be able to do. Okay, and so I think it's fair to say that the program that we've developed has multi-dimensional reach. We have a broad geographic constituency, Our courses are open to applications from all nations. We offer training when we're allowed to do so, both off and on site. Train Online is accessible to absolutely everybody, anywhere in the world for free. Similarly, our webinars are available worldwide for free. Our reach is intersectoral. Most of the work that we do is with academics, but we also offer industry workshops. We offer some courses that are specifically tailored to industry, and we offer some courses that are specifically tailored to clinical practitioners. We do a lot of this work in collaboration with Cambridge University Hospitals, with Health Education England, and with Health Data Research UK. And then, as I mentioned, we are completely agnostic to the career stage of our trainees. And so whilst many of the courses that we offer are geared towards early stage researchers, there are a small number of courses that are actually designed for senior staff. And one of the ones that I've been very lucky to be involved in for a few years now is the course that we run for core facility managers. And then we also offer some professional qualifications with university partners. And of course, then through our Train the Trainer activities, we're also quite actively involved in the continuing professional development of bioinformatics trainers. And I think, you know, in terms of capacity strengthening, this is a really important thing to be involved in. And then finally, the staff exchanges, the visits and the secondments that we organise are also available to people at all career stages. So some of our visitors are master's students, even occasional undergraduate students, but then we go right through to visiting professors. Okay, so I'm just, because of this audience, going to touch a little bit on how our international projects contribute to the EBI's global strategy. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the situation we have in an organisation like EMBL, where we're funded by our member states, and the vast majority of our member states are in Europe, although Argentina is also an associate member state. So we do have some Latin American representation in our membership. But the vast majority of our members are European, and of course we have an obligation to support EMBL science and our member states. And then balancing that out, we have this huge global demand from users of the EBI's data resources and services. And the largest training gap, and I think the fastest growing demand, is from low and middle income countries. And I also think that there is a huge, huge opportunity here for us to encourage the global research community to use bioinformatics to drive sustainable development. And so this is why I have this rather awful colonial map here, because in terms of the drivers for the training programme, it's a world of two halves. and we have to balance those two things out all of the time. And so the vast majority of our EMBL funding is focusing on doing what's right by the EMBL member states. So delivering training in Europe, delivering training at the EBI. But then we have the freedom to go and seek external funding and do things elsewhere in the world as well. And so that's where Cabana came from. And Cabana was also one of these completely opportunistic things. This is not a vision that I had in the first place. It was a vision that a Colombian scientist called Marco Cristanco had. He had had some interactions with the EBI. One of our staff members had received a sort of mini grant from the training team and had gone to her home country and delivered some training in Colombia, and Marco had hosted one of those courses. And so this drove Marco to call me up and to say, I've found this source of funding in the UK, and I think we could work with the EBI to develop a pan-Latin American training network. And I thought, what a fantastic idea. And he completely inspired me, and still continues to inspire me. And so together we cooked up this idea for the Cabana project. Marco is a plant biologist originally by training. He's worked in coffee genomics and coffee rust genomics, and knew many people in the agri-food sector. I knew a few in the more infectious diseases and health sector, and then we also had some contacts in the biodiversity area. And so we put all of this together. We put together this wonderful consortium, and together we're trying to address 3 different sustainable development goals. So this is just a quick map of our partners, and you can see that they span much of Latin America, from North and Central America right the way through. We don't have any representation in the Caribbean, and it would be lovely to address that. And we don't have any representation way down in the south, but my colleagues in the Cabana project have certainly offered training courses that have reached these areas. And so this map would look pretty comprehensive if every Cabana trainee was represented on this map. And the reason why we wanted to do this is because there is a shortage of data-driven biology coming from this tremendously important region. And you can see that when we look at projects like the ISGR and the 1,000 Genomes project, which gave birth to the ISGR, where you see a massive underrepresentation of sequences from Latin American populations. And this is reducing the usefulness of these data sets for personalized medicine on the continent. And so, we're missing a trick here. The global research community is missing a trick by not being sufficiently inclusive to Latin America. And also, I have to say, to Africa. There's a very similar story in Africa, where there is a huge underrepresentation of the diversity of the continent. And then it's a similar story if you look at the Earth Biogenome Project. I mean, there are 7 mega biodiverse countries in Latin America. And until very recently, they only had 1 seat on the EBP Coordinating Council, which is Brazil. Colombia is now also a part of the EBP, and we're really trying to encourage more countries to become part of the EBP, because for protection of biodiversity, for genomic conservation, this is going to be a really important project. And it is so important that Latin America is represented properly here. So these are the kinds of challenges that, whilst there's no way we can address this by ourselves in this small consortium, we can raise awareness of these challenges, and we can offer training and research-led training, and try and spread the word about this, and really gather a coalition of the willing to do more about this. And of course, what I know best is training, and so my approach to this has been very training-led. But the partners, many of them are excellent trainers, but they're also great scientists, and so their approach has been more science-led. And between us, I think we've managed to put together something that's rather beautiful. So really, right at the heart of the project is the research secondments, and we have had researchers from all over Latin America coming to the EBI for usually 6 months, sometimes a little bit longer. And then we've also had some going to other UK-based labs, and some exchanging and going from one Latin American lab to another. And we've already completed 28 secondments, and we're really hoping that we're going to be able to open some more calls. But of course, this is a bit stuck because of the COVID situation at the moment. So whilst we've already achieved what we said we were going to achieve in this 4-year project, I am really hoping that before the end of the project we'll be able to get another one of these sets of secondments in. But I have to say I'm hopeful, but I'm not desperately optimistic about that at the moment. Whilst our secondees have been with us, we've been working with them to do train the trainer activities, and we've actively engaged those secondees in delivering training, and this has been a tremendous success. Nearly all of our secondees now have delivered training somewhere else in the network, and 2 of our secondees are leading on the trainer workshop this afternoon as part of Iscb Latin America. So this has been really great. And they're now, of course, running train the trainer workshops of their own. So there's a multiplier effect there, which makes this even more powerful. All in all, we've run 25 courses, again, all over Latin America. We've reached 608 trainees so far, and around 140 of those have had travel fellowships. They've had some financial support towards going to these training courses. So we've been able to make nearly all of these training courses international across the continent. And we've really tried to use this as an opportunity to reach out to those areas that are perhaps not so close to the capital cities and don't have so many opportunities for bioinformatics training. For those that can't get to a training workshop, we've also delivered e-learning courses. This is very much a work in progress. We're hoping by the end of the project to have 13 courses. There's an intro course, and then there are 12 courses that focus on a combination of different bioinformatics analysis methodologies using different use cases. And the use cases here are all tied to one of our sustainable development challenges. So for each method, we're going to have use cases that are relevant to either communicable disease, sustainable food production, or protection of biodiversity. And then this final thing, and this came absolutely from the partners, is that we've been able to use a slight underspend to fund a mini round of grant applications, and our partners have worked together to put these applications together to apply for mini grants that are sub-awarded through Cabana, and they're now getting started on these innovation awards. So we're driving not just training collaboration, but also scientific collaboration across the Cabana partners. And the latest one of these to be funded is a COVID project, actually. So we've got, I think, 6 or 7 of our partner labs sequencing at least 100 COVID isolates from their country, and then using the data to learn something about the evolution of the virus in each of their countries and then across the entire continent. So all of this is done in a spirit of open science, of inclusivity, and of training at all career stages. So things that we try and adopt at the EBI, and we've expanded those values to the Cabana project. So I'm conscious that I'm probably running out of time. I think I have until 9:35 to talk to you. So I'm going to just say a few words about why I think I've accidentally become a bioinformatician, despite the fact that I have never done any bioinformatics research as such at the EBI. And this is because you really do get influenced by the context that you're in and your surroundings. And so essentially, I've realized that my team has now become part of the world of training informatics. Because we're in a Bioinformatics Institute, we've adopted a bioinformatics approach to improving our training and keeping track of everything that we do. So we have a training database. And all of these, multiple hundreds of people at the EBI who participate in training all tell us, using this database, what training activities they've been involved in. We can export that information, we can cut it in many ways, we can visualize it in many ways, and analyze it, and then, most importantly, interpret that analysis. And so we've done a lot of work here in terms of thinking about not only the quality of the training that we're delivering, but also the impact. What is the ultimate behavioral change that takes place in someone who has been on an EBI training course or on a Cabana training course? So, we collect all of this information. When people register for our courses, we collect demographic information. Then we collect information on, how they're feeling for the quality of the course when we're doing our post-course surveys. All of this tells us about the quality and the reach of our work, but it doesn't tell us about the impact. So we then have to gather more information sometime after the training has taken place, when people have had a chance to go back to their labs, back to their groups, use what they've learned. And we then ask them how they've used it and what has changed since they did the course. And that way we really can get a handle on what the impact of our training has been. And then we could do some machine learning on it, or actually in this case, we did some human learning on it. We sat there and we read every single answer and we binned them into silos. We did this independently. We had two separate sets of people, and then we compared the answers. So we did our controls. We did we had our two samples. We did this in an experimental way, and I'm actually thinking now that we're getting to the point where we're gathering so much data that we probably are going to have to start adopting machine learning and AI approaches to this. But these are the kinds of things that we get. So I can hand on heart say this is the kind of impact that we have on our trainees. They're more confident with their analyses. They have a better understanding of their field and the related bioinformatics concepts. They implement services and tools that they've learnt about in our courses in their own research projects. They've improved the quality of their analyses or the efficiency of their research. And this one fills me with joy. They've passed on what they've learned to colleagues or to students. So we've had a multiplier effect. And then some of them just get a better awareness of state-of-the-art services and tools. And that's great because that also aids their research. Another area in which we've adopted an informatics-based approach is through the development of competency frameworks so that we can develop better training programs. And a lot of this work I've done with the Iscb and with a broader community of people within the Iscb, within Goblet, and in many other projects. And so I view this as, metadata for training. These are our controlled vocabularies, and we can annotate our courses and our course programs with information on the competencies that people develop if they come on particular training courses. And then we can also use them to do comparative experiments. And so one of the members of my team, Vera, and a project that she's been working on called BioExcel, have put together this really, really nice service, which then starts to bleed into career development opportunities. So you can take different job roles, both at junior levels and at senior levels, and you can compare what competencies are required. And then if, for example, you want to change track a bit, if you want to move from, let's say, being a computational chemist to being a software engineer, you can get an instant readout of what competencies you need to develop. And then you can click on one of these competencies and find courses that are available to help you develop those skills. And so again, by adopting a rather informatics-based approach, we've been able to develop these career development tools. And this has only just been launched. I'm hoping that within the next few months, we're going to be able to apply this kind of methodology to our Iscb competency framework. And then that'll make it really squarely relevant to this community and to the Iscb membership as a whole. And so we view training as being a net contributor to science, and particularly to EMBL's science, because as well as inspiring our trainees to go on and do new things and really put bioinformatics at the heart of their science, we're also stimulating new scientific collaborations. We're enabling teams, and this is particularly at the EBI, to see and respond to their own users' ever-changing needs. And so the services also evolve in light of what the trainers are learning through delivering training. And we also provide opportunities for EBI staff to develop professionally by interacting with and learning from other organisations that do the kinds of things that we do. I'm going to skip over this in the interests of time and just give you some very, very quick reflections on my own personal journey, just because I want to get through to you, whilst I completely advocate planning your career and using the kinds of tools I've just shown you here to do that career planning. I would also strongly, strongly encourage you to be open to serendipity and to opportunity. So I had planned to be some kind of natural or medical scientist. I've been fascinated by the living world all my life. I was kind of led into medicine because I went to a highly academic all-girls school, and you know, girls who were good at biology and chemistry got told to apply to do medicine at my school. That was simply a fact of life at the time, and that's what I did, and I was successful in that. But then, you know, a little bit further down the line, I realised that wasn't quite the fit that I'd been looking for. And literally everything else in my career to date has been completely opportunistic. So the funding for my postdoc position fell through. And the reason why I got into publishing was through a conversation with a friend in the lab. He had a friend who was going on maternity leave, needed a temporary editor, and he thought I might be good at that because I enjoyed writing up my PhD and I liked writing papers, and I'd shown some skills in that area. And so he kind of nudged me in this direction, and I'm so glad he did, because it was amazing. And it was a wonderful career for 10 years, and I learned so much. And when I finally tired of it, yet again, it was random conversations and social connections that led me to the EBI. And there, things didn't quite go as I'd planned them either. I applied to be a curator in the gene ontology group, and suddenly found myself agreeing to start up an outreach program. And I still don't quite know how that happened, but the people I blame for it are Graham Cameron and Michael Ashburner, who were the director and associate director of EBI at the time. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, Cabana happened because I received a completely speculative call from someone who I didn't even know, but who has now become a very good friend. So what I really want to encourage you to do is to always be open to these random happenings, and to consider them seriously, because they might be happening for a reason. I'm going to skip over this one in the interests of time. But I did just want to point you to a few career resources. I've mentioned some of them as I've gone along. The Iscb Careers Centre is a great place to post your CV. It's a great place to look for career opportunities. And I know that there is also a lot more planned. I've been kind of sitting on the edges of a careers group that's planning to add some much richer content to this, career profiles, some ideas as to how you develop into specific careers, and some case studies. So do keep an eye on this, because there's more coming fairly soon. I would encourage you to take a look at the Iscb competency framework. Again, the published version, which is available in this paper, is already freely available, but there's a new version coming soon. We've been doing a lot of work on it in the last year, and that will soon be available both in the competency hub that we've developed at the EBI, but also on the Iscb website. And over the next few months, I'm hoping to be working with Seth and the Iscb team to make that happen. I'd also encourage you to take a look at the science careers pages. And this has been around for quite a long while now, and it might look a little bit dated, but it's a really great resource. They have this individual career development plan that really encourages you to play to your strengths. And then again, for inspiration, the careers pages at the EBI. There are some careers that you might not have thought of. They're ranging from biocurator through software developer, through bioinformatics trainer, all sorts of things. So I would encourage you to take a look at those for inspiration. With that, I would like to say thanks to the many collaborators and the many projects that I'm involved in, and the many funders of those projects, and also to say a huge thank you to my team who do all of the hard work that I've talked about. There's a little bit more on how to get in contact with them and the EBI training program there. And I'm hoping that I'll have a mechanism to make these slides available to you all after this talk. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and I'm sorry for overrunning a couple of minutes. Very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your talk. We have a few minutes for questions, and we already have one from Jesse from Colombia. He asked, how do you think the training strategy in bioinformatics will change after this pandemic?
I think it will be considerably more inclusive. I think virtual training is absolutely here to stay. And I think we should really take advantage of that. We were all worried at the beginning that everyone would get Zoom fatigue, and that by this point, people wouldn't be going to courses and conferences virtually. They would have just had enough. But in fact, that has turned out not to be the case. If anything, I think it's been the opposite. There was some skepticism at first. There was some worry that, it can't possibly be the same as meeting face to face, and I don't know whether I want to do this. But the tools are getting better and better. I think our willingness to experiment is getting better and better. And our willingness just to kind of build social time into virtual events and do the things that we would normally do if we were hanging around in a bar or hanging around in a coffee room, that's also increasing, because this is our natural human nature, right? Even me as an introvert, I like doing these things. So I think that this is here to stay, and I think it can only get better. And I think there will probably be a move towards hybrid approaches as well, with some people getting together face to face, but the overall framework onto which all of that is hung is a virtual one.
I have a question that is related to this. Which advantages and disadvantages you have found to having to work online on giving training and conferences?
There are some really simple advantages which I've loved. I don't have a very good memory. And in the platforms I've been working on, just being able to see everybody's name is really, it adds to the inclusivity, because I can talk to people by their names. And I know that if I'm in a classroom situation, I'm never going to remember everybody's name. So I really like that. I really like I like being able to see everybody. So one thing that has been, I suppose it's a surprise at first, it's a surprise that we've all got used to now, is that, you know, at the beginning everybody was saying, oh, virtual training is more scalable, right? So you don't need to just train 30 people, you could train hundreds or maybe even thousands of people at the same time. But if I'm going to go back to those training values that I touched on at the very beginning of my talk, if we want to develop collegiality, if we want to be interactive, if we want to give people true practical training, even in a virtual situation, it doesn't actually scale that well. And so, in fact, we've kept, for our virtual live training, we've kept it to 20, 25 participants. Of course, then, you know, we're recording the lectures and we can make all the materials available afterwards. And so it's scalable in that respect, but it's perhaps not quite as scalable as we thought it might be. And one thing perhaps I should add to that, actually, is I really do think that the value of a lot of the training we provide is that interactive contact with the EBI experts, with our other course faculty, with the Cabana experts. And so even though, you know, we make all of the training materials available, what people really, really want is that interactivity and also a chance to interact with their peers too, not just the trainers, but their peers.
So we are running out of time. We have another question from Juan Manuel. He asked, I'd like to have your opinion on how could undergraduates have more involvement in research, considering that many programs are focused on graduate and PhD students?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an inclusivity challenge for Europe and the US here. I have noticed, since I've been working more closely with Latin America, that those doing undergraduate courses and those doing master's courses are actually doing things at a level that perhaps in Europe and in parts of the US we don't do until postgraduate. And often we're seeing much more mature students who also have professional background and may have been actually working in labs for years, working in science for years, who are now, you know, later in life doing undergraduate degrees and master's degrees. And so the demographic is quite different from what we've been used to in Europe and the US. And so I think we have to give much more consideration to this when we're doing course selections and when we're doing selections for our visitor programs. And this is something that we've really tried to encourage in Cabana, because you know, the continents are different, the education systems are different, and we have to allow for that and come up with processes that really look at the potential of the people who are applying and select on that basis.